Have you ever had a morning where you wake up, sit on the edge of the bed, and just wait? Not because you're tired, not even because you're in pain, but because you're not quite sure what the point of the day is. You look around the room, everything's the same, yet something feels missing. It's in that quiet moment, before your feet touch the floor, that you might start to feel it. That slow, creeping question, is this really all there is now? If that sounds even a little familiar, you're not alone. And more importantly, there's nothing wrong with you. Growing older brings changes we don't always expect. It's not just about wrinkles or gray hair. It's about what starts to disappear on the inside. Things we used to take for granted, purpose, movement, connection, they begin to slip away, almost unnoticed at first. But the truth is, when those pieces fade, they don't just take our joy. They can take our health, too. And that's why this video matters. Today, we're going to talk about something most people don't want to hear. That old age, without a few key things in place, can actually be dangerous. Not just unpleasant or boring. Truly dangerous to your well-being, your confidence, and even your independence. But don't worry, we're not here to scare you. We're here to bring those things back. So grab a warm cup of tea or coffee, get comfortable, and let's have an honest conversation. One that could change how you feel about growing older. We're going to cover 5 powerful things that every senior needs. Things that can bring back your energy, your spark, your sense of you. And before we go on, don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more life-changing advice that helps you live stronger, longer, and with more joy than ever. Let's start with something simple, but powerful. You see, without a reason to get out of bed, the days begin to lose their shape. The hours blur. Breakfast turns into lunch. And before you know it, it's dark again. I once knew a man named Bill, retired firefighter, strong as they come. But after he left the job, something shifted. At first, he said it felt like a well-earned vacation. No alarms, no calls, no emergencies. But 6 months later, his daughter told me he was sleeping till noon and barely stepping outside. Not because he couldn't, but because he had no reason to. That's the danger. Not lack of ability, but lack of purpose. You don't need a job to have a reason. You just need something to wake up for. Something that's yours. It could be a garden, a journal, a morning walk, or even checking in on someone who counts on you. When your day has rhythm, your mind stays sharper. Your heart feels steadier. And your body, believe it or not, starts to cooperate again. Have you noticed yourself feeling restless even after a full night's sleep? Or like the days are just dragging along? That might not be tiredness. It might be your spirit asking for purpose. And it doesn't have to be grand. It just has to be consistent. Bill? He ended up starting a small woodworking bench in his garage. He said the smell of sawdust in the morning made him feel alive again. And suddenly, the days felt too short, not too long. And speaking of feeling alive, let's talk about the second piece of this puzzle. Because even with the strongest will in the world, it's hard to feel good if your body isn't backing you up. Here's the truth nobody tells you enough. When you stop moving, your body starts forgetting how. And it doesn't take much. Just a few quiet weeks, and things begin to stiffen, slow down. That gentle ache in your knees, the effort it takes to get up from a chair, it's not just old age. Sometimes, it's a used strength asking to be noticed again. Take a moment right now. Seriously, try this and lift one foot off the ground. Can you hold it for 10 seconds? If you can, fantastic. If not, that's okay. But that small wobble might be telling you more than you think. Balance, strength, even posture, they don't just keep you upright. They protect your freedom. Every small habit, a few stretches, a short walk, standing up during commercials, those are investments in staying mobile and independent. I met a woman named Marlene last year, 79, sweet as pie, sharp as a tack. But she told me she had stopped going to the grocery store because the aisles felt too long, the carts too heavy. That broke my heart because I knew it wasn't about the groceries. It was about the slow fading of confidence in her own body. So I gave her a little challenge. 10 minutes of seated marching every morning while watching her favorite show. She laughed at first, said it sounded silly, but 3 weeks later, She called me, breathless with joy, and said she went to the store and walked every aisle. What changed? Not her age, not her circumstances, just a tiny daily habit that reminded her what she was still capable of. And that's the real secret. It's not about doing what you used to do. It's about doing what you can right now. That's enough. In fact, that's more than enough. So if you've been feeling a little slower lately, a little less confident on your feet, don't wait until something goes wrong. Start moving gently. Today, your body isn't broken. It's just waiting to be invited back into your life. Let's keep going. Because this isn't about going backward. It's about moving forward into a life that still has rhythm, strength, and meaning. And that's the beauty of the stage in life. You get to choose what you bring back, what you rebuild. And maybe for some of you, the first two things we talked about hit close to home. But there's another piece that slips away far too quietly. And when it does, it changes everything. I'm talking about connection. Not the kind that fills your calendar with events or your phone with noise, but the kind that makes you feel seen, known, missed when you're not there. It's surprising how easily that vanishes. You don't even realize it at first. A few less calls from friends. A neighbor moves. The grandkids get busier. Suddenly the silence isn't peaceful anymore. It's heavy. And here's the thing no one talks about. We need to feel connected to others, not just socially, but emotionally. We need to know that someone cares when we speak, that our stories still matter, that we haven't faded into the background. I once sat with a woman named Darlene. She was 82, wore the same cherry red lipstick every single day, and had the most beautiful stories of dancing in the 1950s. But when I met her, she hadn't shared any of those stories in months, because no one had asked. She told me she felt like a tree no one noticed anymore, still standing, still growing, but no longer admired. That image stayed with me, because the pain wasn't about being alone. It was about being invisible. And yet, it only took one person listening, truly listening, to wake her up again. A few chats a week, a shared cup of tea, and her voice began to sparkle again. You could see it in her eyes. She was back. That's how powerful connection is. And it doesn't require dozens of people. Sometimes just one is enough. One friend, one neighbor, one person who knows your name and looks for you. That's where the healing begins. So if your days have been quiet lately, too quiet, I want you to try something. The next time you're out at the store, on a walk, even sitting on the porch, make eye contact with someone and say hello. It might feel awkward. That's okay. Awkward is just the price of a new beginning. Or maybe write a quick note to someone you haven't heard from. Just a thinking of you. You don't need to fix the silence in one day, but you can crack it open just a little. And if you're feeling brave, drop a comment below and tell me, who's someone you'd love to reconnect with? A cousin, an old friend, a neighbor? Sometimes writing the name down is the first step to picking up the phone. Now, there's something else that slowly drains our joy without us even realizing it. Something that can make the brightest days feel gray and the most beautiful moments fall flat. It's boredom, but not the kind that's solved by a television show or a crossword. I'm talking about a lack of mental spark. That fire in your brain that comes from learning, wondering, creating. When we stop challenging our minds, it's like a fog rolls in. You start forgetting what day it is. Conversations feel shallow. You read the same sentence 3 times and still can't remember what it said. But here's the incredible part. Your brain is still hungry, still curious. It just needs a little invitation. I knew a man named George, 85, quiet, sharp as a tack in his day, but had lost that sparkle. His daughter bought him a jigsaw puzzle, one with tiny pieces and a picture of a lighthouse, because he used to love the sea. He groaned at first, said he didn't have the patience. But then he started working on it a few minutes each day. And wouldn't you know, 2 weeks later, he was talking nonstop about where each piece fit, what he remembered about his time in the Navy, how the ocean sounded at night. That little puzzle didn't just pass the time. It brought him back to life. Because mental stimulation isn't about staying busy. It's about staying interested, asking questions, solving things, learning something new, no matter how small. That spark keeps your brain healthy, and it keeps your spirit awake. So let me ask you, when was the last time you tried something new, just for fun of it? Read a book outside your usual favorites? Played a game? Try to learn something from a grandchild or neighbor. It's never too late to be curious again. And if you're thinking, well, what's the point? I'm too old to pick up new things. Let me stop you right there. You're not. You're not too old, too slow, or too far gone. Your brain doesn't care about your age. It cares about effort. It wants to be used, challenged, awakened. So even if it's just 10 minutes a day, a word puzzle, a YouTube video about something you've never heard of, journaling your thoughts, give your mind a little nudge. You might be amazed at how quickly it starts to respond. You'll feel sharper, more alive. And trust me, the fog will start to lift. If you've made it this far and something stirred in you, maybe you're remembering the version of yourself that used to light up at a good conversation or a clever mystery. Just comment the number yes down below. That's our quiet nod to each other, saying, I still have that spark. Because here's the truth. Whether it's purpose, movement, connection, or curiosity, these things don't fade because we're getting older. They fade when we stop reaching for them. But they can come back. They can grow again. And they can make these years some of the richest yet. Let's keep going. There's still something important we need to talk about. And what we need to talk about next is something that cuts deeper than many people realize. It's not visible like a limp or as loud as a cough. But when it starts to disappear, everything else begins to unravel quietly. I'm talking about dignity, that deep sense of self-worth that reminds you you're still someone with value, with a voice, with a life worth honoring. It's a strange thing, isn't it? How the world starts to treat you differently the older you get. The waiter who glances at your children instead of you when taking an order. The doctor who assumes you don't understand big words. The way people start calling you sweetie or Han. Even if they mean well, it can feel like the person you've always been is slipping through the cracks. I remember a woman named Joyce. She was 77 when I met her, sharp and elegant. Used to be a school principal. She had this quiet strength in her eyes, but after a stroke, she had to use a walker, and that's when everything changed. She told me the hardest part wasn't the walker. It wasn't the physical therapy or even the pain. It was the way people started looking past her, as if she'd become a shadow of who she used to be, not because she had changed, but because people had stopped seeing her the same way. And let me tell you, nothing drains your spirit faster than being treated like you don't matter. But here's the truth that never changes. No matter how many birthdays you've had, you still matter. You still have value. You still deserve respect from others, yes, but especially from yourself. And that's where the real shift happens. Because how you see yourself, how you speak to yourself, that sets the tone for everything else. Let me ask you, when you look in the mirror, what do you see? Are you proud of the person staring back? Do you see the story etched into every wrinkle? The strength behind every scar? The victories hidden behind every gray strand of hair? Because they're there. You've lived. You've endured. You've loved. You've shown up over and over again. And that counts for something. So if you've been walking through your days quietly, not wanting to ask for help, not wanting to bother anyone, I want to challenge that. You're not a bother. You're not in the way. You're not less than. You are still someone worth listening to. Someone worth respecting. Someone worth including. Start by treating yourself that way. Speak kindly to yourself when you make a mistake. Give yourself credit when you show up, even on the hard days. And if someone talks down to you or ignores your opinion, look them in the eye and remind them, you've earned your place in this world. That brings me to something just as important, maybe even more. It's the one thing that can lift your spirit on the darkest days. The one thing that can spark hope, even when you're feeling low. It's the feeling of being needed. Because when you no longer feel needed, when you believe the world could keep spinning just fine without you, that's when loneliness settles in deeper than ever before. It's not just being alone. It's that quiet ache that says, does anyone still need me? And if you felt that, even a little, I want you to hear me loud and clear. Someone does. There's always someone, a neighbor, a child, a friend, even a stranger, who could be changed by your presence. You might not even realize the impact you have. I once met Frank, an 84-year-old widower. He told me he felt like he was just existing. Said his phone barely rang anymore. His kids lived out of state. He didn't want to be a burden, so he stopped calling, stopped showing up. But one day, a young boy from next door knocked on his door with a broken toy, and something shifted. Frank helped him fix it. Then the next day, the boy came back. And then again. Soon, they were meeting on the porch every afternoon. Frank had someone to look forward to. Someone who needed him. Not for what he used to be, but for who he still was. It doesn't take much. A smile, a conversation, a favor, a shared hobby. Being needed doesn't always mean being depended on. It just means your presence makes someone else's day better. It can be a dog who waits for your walk, a friend who counts on your morning call, a local group that notices when you're missing. That feeling of being essential, even in small ways, reignites something in your soul. So if you've been thinking, I don't know if anyone needs me anymore, I want you to challenge that voice. Because there's always someone who could use your encouragement, your wisdom, your story. All it takes is one step. Reach out, offer to help, share a kind word, ask someone how they're doing, and really mean it. That feeling of being needed isn't just nice. It's life-giving. It's the thread that weaves you back into the world. And when you feel it again, even just a little, you begin to rise. Your shoulders lift. Your heart opens. You start to belong again. If that resonates with you, if you've ever felt invisible or forgotten, leave a comment below and just type the word needed. Let's remind each other that we all still have something to give. Now, before we go, let's pause. Let's take a deep breath and sit with what we've uncovered together. Because old age in itself is not the enemy. It's what disappears with it that creates the danger. When we lose our purpose, our strength, our connections, our curiosity, our dignity, and our sense of being needed. But the beauty is, none of these are gone for good. They can return. They can be rebuilt. They belong to you. You don't need to change everything overnight. Just one small step, that's all it takes to begin. One habit, one connection, one kind word to yourself, one act of showing up. Because when you start to rebuild what's been missing, something inside you comes back to life. And you deserve that. You deserve days that feel full, hearts that feel seen, and a life that feels like it still belongs to you. So if this message spoke to you, please like this video, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and make sure you're subscribed. We have more conversations like this coming, honest, kind, and full of hope, and we'd love for you to be part of it. Thank you for spending this time with me today. You matter. You're not alone. And the best days, the meaningful, connected, and peaceful ones, may still be ahead. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.